Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sideline Breakdown. I'm Kyle, your host, and we're going to be switching things up a bit in this episode. Unfortunately, Mr. Ruck Norris is unable to make it today, but the show must go on. We're going to be taking a look and previewing this weekend's European games for the South African sides, and we're going to be breaking down some of their team selections and getting into some of the predictions. Hopefully, I'm able to predict some correctly for the weekend. My track record hasn't been particularly great, but I think we're going to be hopefully let's look at the positive side of things and yeah, hopefully it's a clean sweep for the South African sides. But without further ado, I think let's dive straight into the first game of the weekend for the South African sides, and that's going to be Stormers versus La Rochelle. Getting into the team selection for the Stormers, Dobson going with a very strong team. Nkunu keeping his place at loosehead prop. Obviously, a fantastic game last weekend. And certainly deserves a shot to make that number one jersey his own. Andre Venter, who has been here and thereabouts when it comes to the Stormers, obviously consistently available. Good hooker, good line out, good at line out time. Decent in the scrums. Have Neetling for Shea at 3. Dobson obviously looking to keep the momentum going in the scrum. And yeah, I think with the front three of Nkunu, Venter, and Forshia, Stormers are looking very, very strong there. Salman Mirat obviously keeps his place as captain at 4, and JD Schikkeling comes into the number 5 jersey, which is fantastic to see. Connor Evans hasn't had the best of times recently, and I think JD Schikkeling certainly deserves his shot in that number 5 jersey, and hopefully he can um, keep ensure that that jersey stays on his back. Yeah, good to see JD there at 5. We then have arguably, in terms of form, the best loose trio in the country at the moment, in my opinion. You have Paul de Villiers, Ben Jason Dixon, and Evan Roos. Paul de Villiers really putting his hand up at the moment when it comes to Springbok selection. If I think if we're being completely honest, fantastic player and certainly showing what he's all about. Ben Jason Dixon getting back into the Springbok side, so he'll certainly want to prove a point and want to ensure that he keeps his Bok or his place in the Springbok team. And then Evan Roos, who will certainly be looking to get back into Rassie Erasmus's um, Springbok side going long term. Been in good form recently, so hope he can keep it going. But yeah, forwards for the Stormers looking really, really strong, and I think with that with those forwards moving forward, if they can get some good go forward, really stamp their foot when it comes to the power game, get them get La Rochelle moving backwards. You have guys like Kupus Reinach and Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu who have really formed a fantastic partnership at the Springboks. And yeah, I think they're going to be very, very dangerous. Sasha looking to carry on with his form, same with Kubus Reinach. So really, really good combination there. And then we have Lillian Zas and Dylan Mart on the wings. A lot of pace. Obviously Dylan Mart looking to prove himself and keep that jersey as well. Lillian Zas, consistent performer over the last couple of years for the Stormers. And then you have Jonathan Roach and Rowan Now. Jonathan Roach, kind of a new kid on the block. See how he does inside centre. Ruan now, fantastic performer. And then Warwick Geland hoping to combine with Sasha, probably coming in at the first receiver position quite a lot, but obviously a big threat at fullback. So I mean, I think it's probably arguably with the exclusion of Damian Willem, so probably the Stormers' best side. So we'll see how they front up against La Rochelle. Going to the bench, JJ Kotza, strong with ball in hand. Oli Kebble, Sazi Sandi, Connor Evans, Ruan Akraban, who actually I think has made a very good impact and a good start to his Stormers career. Marcel Tennyson, who also could possibly be a very decent impact player. Imad Khan, who had a good showing last weekend, and then Wandisile Samalani, option at fullback and outside centre, probably wing as well. So interesting selection there. Dobson going with a 6-1 split. But yeah, very very strong side for the Stormers. So we'll see how they bode against your Rochelle side. Cool. Moving on to the next game, we have Sharks against Saracens, who I mean, JP Peterson's obviously now stepping into his role as head coach. How much is going to change? I mean, we had this conversation on the last episode. I'm not sure how much is going to change, but let's hope the Sharks can start, getting some form. Obviously, they have some fantastic players, and a couple of them have been selected for them for this weekend. So let's hope they can put in a performance against Saracens. They are playing at home, so everything has worked out for JP Peterson's first game. But yeah, these players really, really need to step up. We have Kanyani, Bonambi at hooker. Unsure about Kanyani. Haven't seen much of him. Andre Jacobs at 3. We'll see how they go front up against Saracens in this at scrum time. Jason Jenkins and Emil van Heerden in the lock positions. Sia Khaleesi, Vincent Chituka, and Pepsi Utalezi. Decent loose trio. Obviously, Sia there at the 6. Vincent Chituka has been a solid and consistent performer for the Sharks. Probably one of the few bright sparks that they've had over the last year, probably. And then Pepsi Buthelezi, who's been kind of in and out the side. Made a couple of good impacts from the bench. And yeah, we'll see how he fares at number 8. I actually think, in my opinion, he's probably a better impact player when the legs are tired. He's obviously got a lot of gas. He is reasonably strong, so I think it'd actually be a fantastic option off the bench. But he is starting, so let's see whether he can put his hand up and make sure that 8 jersey doesn't get taken off him. We then have probably the Sharks' best scrum half in Grant Williams, Springbok scrummy at 9. George Whitehead, who obviously had a fantastic Curry Cup. I mean, the future in George Whitehead, I'm not sure. Obviously, the Sharks have a couple of halves coming through who just really haven't shown what they're all about. So I suppose JB Peterson wanting to go with the experience, calm head. And that's one thing I think you can give to George Whitehead is he certainly does have a lot of experience, in that head of his. So see how that combination between Grant Williams and George Whitehead goes. Moving further into the back line, we have Mapimpi, Andre Esterhuizen now captaining the side, and Ethan Hooker at outside centre. Really, really dangerous in centre pairing there for the Sharks. Ethan Hooker in fantastic form, and I think Andre Esterhuizen hasn't played better that I've seen. Obviously, had a couple years in England, but yeah, I think Andre Esterhuizen this year has really shown what he can do, and let's hope he can carry on that form. And then we have the dangerous Edwil van der Merwe at wing, which is I don't think he's had the best start to his Sharks career, but a fantastic player. So let's hope he can find his feet and find his form in the Sharks jersey. And then a return for Apalele Fassi, one of the contenders for the Springbok jersey. He'll certainly be wanting to stake a claim and prove that he is the Springbok 15 ahead of Damian Willemse even, which is obviously very, very difficult to do, but it's never a bad thing to have options when it comes to your Springbok side. So, yeah, sure, Fassi won't be wanting to prove his quality. And then moving on to the bench, Edouard Swart, backup hooker, Mazibuko, Ndanda, there in your props. Marvin Ori coming on, Matt Romeo, Nick Hatton, Jaden Hendricks, and then Jordan, his brother, there on the bench to cover out your 23. Again, another 6-2 split for the Sharks. Yeah, quite an interesting selection there. And I think it's going to be very important for them to really gain some confidence, get their season up and going. And I hope we see something different from the Sharks. A bit more passion, a bit more confidence. Really try and show their quality of player. I mean, I think it's still a fantastic side if you go on paper. So let's hope they can really push through. But disappointed not to see Ross Brody. I think he had a fantastic game last weekend, and Jaden Hendrickson really has been quite poor recently. So in my opinion, I'd probably go for Ross Brody in this game above Jaden. But again, Jaden has proved himself over the last couple of years. He's an experienced head, so I mean, it's the only real reason I can think that JP would go with him. But we'll see how this game fares. Moving into the next game, we got the Lions up against Newcastle Red Bulls. Another interesting side being picked by the Lions. A lot of first teamers or guys you would consider first teamers not playing in this game. Fairly young side, fairly new side. Eddie Davids at one. Mornay Brandon, who I think is pretty decent, obviously quite strong with ball in hand. Skuman at tight head prop. Shublom and Skuman in their lock positions. Renzo Duplessis, who really looks like a threatening player at number 6. 7. Siba Omar. Via Steenkamp at 8, who is captaining the side. I think another fantastic player who, honestly, I think would have done quite well at the Bulls. Unfortunately, obviously looking to get more game time, moving abroad, or not abroad, moving to a different team rather, going across the XK and moving to the Lions. And really solid player, and very mobile, very strong. So we'll see how he goes. Niku Steyn at 9 with Sam Francis, very inexperienced combination, but obviously a couple of young guys looking to push through. Angelo Davids, who I'm sure everyone's well aware of at the Stormers, extremely quick, extremely strong with ball in hand, has a good step. I think injuries has really plagued his career up until this point, but a very good player, and I'm sure you all want to try and follow in the footsteps of Edward van der Merwe, going from the Stormers to the Lions, and then hopefully staking a claim for the Springboks. See how he goes. Richard Creel and Mani Russ in your centres, or as your centres. Rabs Matloane, extreme gas there on the right wing, and then Gianni Lombard to close out your starting 15. I mean, good side, like I said, young side, fairly inexperienced, but I'm sure it's quite exciting times for the Lions with a number of these players. These players will obviously be looking to build a future at the Lions and hopefully stake a claim for. Well, I suppose won't stake a claim, but I'm sure obviously everyone's dream to play for the Springboks one day, and um, I'm sure they'll wanna play the best they can so they can be considered for the URC for the Lions as well. Heading to the bench, PJ Botha at hooker, Leon Lyons and Conrad van Vieren, Ruan Dalport, Jared Keynes, Hashim Peed, Dobela, sorry, and then Reinhard Jonker closing it out. Just a quick point on Hashim Peed. I think I have had my rant on Hashim Peed. The limited game time he's received up until this point. I mean, a couple minutes coming on a few weeks ago, I think it's quite disappointing. He certainly looks like the up and coming scrum half in South African rugby at the moment. I'm not saying the coach can't do what he thinks best, but I mean I suppose it's a difficult situation considering Nico Steyn has been in good form. Mono van der Berg is a Springbok, so you will of course pick him. But I think Hashim Peet certainly has deserved more game time than he's received, and yeah, I think let's hope he gets at least 20 minutes so they can show what he can do, and obviously then it's up to him to take that opportunity. Cool. Moving on to the Vodacom Bulls. So yeah, Vodacom Bulls up against Northampton Saints. A lot of Springboks that obviously didn't go with the Bulls team, so a lot of Springboks won't be playing this game for the Bulls. Still a reasonably strong side, very experienced side, um, and I think it'll be quite an interesting game. See, being as it is overseas, Bulls or South African sides actually haven't fared too well when it comes to the northern hemisphere conditions. So we'll see how they are able to navigate the conditions. Um, but yeah, I think let's taking a look at that side. We have Chakweni, Akker van der Merwe, and Morne Smith. Yeah, decent front row, I suppose. Akker obviously quality. Morne Smith and Chakweni are my problem children, if I can really put it that way. But yeah, decent. I think they can probably hold themselves in the scrum, so we'll see how they go. Very good lock combination, Quibus Visa and Jay van Heerden. I think Quibus Visa obviously a Springbok already this year. Really, really strong with ball in hand, so he'll certainly be wanting to make a mark. As well as Jay van Heerden, still reasonably young. I think a very, very good lock and very promising and up and coming. Whether he'll be able to take Rowan Norkeer's position, I doubt it. But certainly one for the future that the Bulls, certainly. I mean, the Bulls have a really good track record when it comes to locks. So yeah, I think we again in the same position. Marcel Coetzee now captaining the side with Reinhard Ludwig and Ulrich Lowe. Just a point there, Ulrich Lowe against Henry Pollock, I think is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. Ulrich Lowe is obviously only coming back from injury quite recently, and Henry Pollock, who apparently is one of the best impact players in world rugby, according to some commentators. Him, yeah, it'll be quite an interesting matchup with those two. Henry Pollock, very, very mobile, very quick. Ulrich Lowe, certainly no slouch, but much stronger, I think, with ball in hand. So I certainly think he'll be one to watch, but we certainly have a very, very mobile loose trio. So going to be a very, very interesting matchup, very interesting game. Let's hope it's going to be one for the ages. But yeah, moving into the back line, got Zach Berger, who hasn't really had much opportunity recently with the Bulls, but he'll be certainly hoping to take. Uh, I suppose I can't really say take Paul de Wet's position as the backup, who obviously did start last weekend. I do think Emrys Papier is the starting scrummy for Johan Ackermann, but Zach Berger will certainly be looking um, to play his best rugby, to try and force his way into consideration for the games that are coming up. Obviously, he's got some stiff competition with Emrys and Paul de Wet, but we'll see how he goes with the combination of Cade Voliter, who massive injury problems, debuting for the Bulls at 10 is going to be a difficult one. I think he looked extremely promising coming through, and injuries really just have plagued his career. The Bulls have got two players like that, and that's Cade Voliter himself, as well as Johan Goosen. Quality players, or certainly look like quality players, but just can't get off the injury bench. So see how he goes on his debut. Certainly looking forward to it because I think we definitely need options there past Andre Pollard and Johan Goosen. So let's hope Cade can really show what he's all about. And then moving on to the wings, we have Stravino Jacobs and Sergio Peterson. Stravino Jacobs, very, very powerful player. Quick. I think he struggles in the air. I don't think he's the best when it comes to aerial battle. When he's got ball in hand, vicious sidestep, very strong with ball in hand, can bump, can hand off. So I think a very dangerous wing, and I think if the Bulls can use his qualities and his strengths this weekend, I think it's going to be a tough game for Northampton Saints. And then Sergio Peterson, experienced head, good in the air, pretty quick. Obviously, doesn't have necessarily the power that someone like a Stravino Jacobs would have, but certainly not a bad option. and then a combination of Harold Forster and Stedman Gans in the centres. Forster, who has his ups and downs, really. I think he's very selfish at times. Struggles to pass the ball. I think his distribution game is pretty poor. But certainly can. I mean, he's a big guy, so I think he can get over the advantage line, and that's probably what Johan Ackerman is wanting him to do. But yeah, at times I think he's a bit of a liability. And then Stedman Gans, who I think was promising under Jake White in the beginning of 2020, it was, or it was the end of 2020 when rugby came back. I think he looked very, very promising, but yeah, just never really cemented himself in that 13 jersey. Obviously, injuries hasn't helped here and there. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game for him as well. Also, someone who really hasn't had much rugby of late. Um, so we'll see how the combination works out. And then Devin Williams at fullback, and I think the Bulls certainly don't have a fullback at the moment, and unfortunately he is one of them who very, very quick, but in terms of quality, defensive capability, I don't think he's particularly good in the air. He has a decent kicking game on him, so I'll give that. But yeah, further than that, I think it's a bit of a disappointing backline all in all. But let's hope the Bulls can, they can really bring their A game. Moving to the bench, Johan Els, Young Hooker, Steve Sitole, Kunu, Gumede, Zamko, Emrose Papier, Keegan Johannes, and then P.A. van Niekerk. 5-3 split, first time that we've seen that so far. Obviously, Emrose Papier, I think, is probably the Bulls' best scrummy. Keegan Johannes, I mean, I'm not 100% sure what the thinking is behind his selection. Unless it is to cover Cade Voliter in case of injury, which I think is a problem in itself. And then P.A. van Niekerk, who has been at the Bulls for quite a while, but yeah, I suppose he is an option. Again, I know he is a centre, but I'm not sure what other positions he can cover. So yeah, quite an interesting selection in terms of the bench for the Bulls. Moving on, and we'll quickly go through this one: the Cheetahs versus Stade France. Cameron Dawson, who I actually think is pretty decent, with Louis van der Westhuizen and Arends Coetzee, Paul Wegner, Johan Venter, Daniel Martens, Pierre Eisen, Gideon van der Merwe. Gideon van der Merwe I actually think should be bought by one of the other provinces. I think he's a really, really good player. Marco Jansen van Vieren, who's mainly been plying his trade in the centre berth. Obviously started out as a scrummy, moved to centre and wing at the Bulls, playing a bit of scrummy as well, gone to the Cheetahs and made him plied his trade at centre, but now playing at George Lawrence, Prince Nkabinde, who very, very big player, very, very quick for his size, and I think he's probably the danger man for the Cheetahs as well as Michael Annis. And then the centre pairing of Dean Ackerman and Hartzenberg, and then Cohen Jasper on the other wing. Moving on to the bench, Willem Paulo, Manjana, Frankie Dorais, Thomas, Vumuzonke, Paul Skink, Nell, and then Blomikis. So yeah, a couple of good players for the Cheetahs. Unfortunately, obviously, they don't have the pulling power of the other provinces, but yeah, I think with that we'll dive straight into the predictions. Starting with the Cheetahs, I don't think it's going to be the easiest game for them. Haven't been particularly great. Obviously, haven't played much rugby, so I'm going to go for a Stade France win there. Going on to the Stormers, I think based on form, I think I'd have to go with the Stormers, and the fact that it is at home. The Stormers have got a very, very strong side, and I think based on form, based on the team that they've selected, I think the Stormers should be strong enough to to take the win there. Sorry about that. Sharks, Saracens. I think it's a difficult prediction considering where the Sharks are, because it is at home, and they are technically under a new coach, although not really. I mean, I think let's be nice. I think let's give it to the Sharks. I think I'm hoping for a South African clean sweep, so I will give it to the Sharks. But it's going to be a tight game, I think. Moving on to the Bulls, I think it's going to be a bit difficult for the Bulls up north. Northampton Saints do have a reasonably strong side. Henry Pollock, JJ van der Mesh, who I think is a really good player as well. I will unfortunately go against the Bulls in this one, but I'm hoping that they can pull one through and hopefully get a good performance under Johan Ackerman and start building from here on out. Moving on to the Lions, I think again, playing away from home, I would probably go against the Lions on this one. But again, let's hope that the Lions can pull one through and make it a South African clean sweep. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Let us know your predictions in the comments, like and subscribe, and let us know what you think of the team selections. What did you think of this format going with a review and preview? And yeah, let us know what your thoughts are when it comes to this weekend's game. Yeah, again, thanks for everyone for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful one further.